Hello everyone and welcome to the Rummy Bears. In this video we're going to be going over the warding design blog that came out April 16, 2019. We're going to be going over the warding design blog that was published April 16th in 2019, so just a couple days ago. I had already recorded a video on this that I had intended to publish yesterday after this was released. However, the audio and video got grossly out of sync and I thought it'd be easier just to redo it, but of course I had to wait another day to get out of work. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, I'd appreciate it, it really helps me out. And with that, let's get right into the blog. So of course, a little background for those who might not know, warding was released as a potential new skill to old school RuneScape last year at RuneFest. This blog has a lot of new information since then about what the skill will involve, potential things that will be in the skill, and how it's trained, etc. Warding as a new skill, warding kind of excites me. I like the idea of it, so that's why I wanted to go through it with all of you guys and go through everything in here and cover it line by line so that we can all be on the same page. Obviously, warding is a pretty controversial topic. It's a big change to the game. There'd be a lot of potential new items and things like that. Regardless of what your opinion is, whether you're for it or against it, I think the right mindset to look at this with is, if the skill were brought into the game, what would you want to have happen in it? What would you want it to add or do as a skill? And you can always vote no when it goes to a poll if you're still against it for whatever reason, and that's your right to, but you might as well have some say into the skill if it does get brought into the game. So with that out of the way, let's get right into the blog. So there's just a little background on what the reason behind warding existing as a skill is. So some rocks rose out of the ground, and there's 6 of them, and then wizards discovered a way to manipulate energy of the rocks to create magical tools and armor. So it'll be a new skill, obviously related to magic. I think this is kind of where warding fits in. You know, smithing, you have melee armor. Crafting, you get ranged armor. Warding, you get magical armor, magical items. From the feedback they got since the last year at RuneFest, there's been a lot of suggestions. So the main things that they collected from their surveys were that it felt like an old school skill and filled a gap in the content, but people wanted more rewards and milestones. People wanted the ability to move imbued rings from Nightmare Zone to the warding skill and then be more fleshed out. Mixed reception for plans to imbue in general. I actually have mixed receptions about that, I'll cover later. Support for the concept of dissolving because an item sync could help the economy. Terminology was confusing and complicated, and being able to train the skill only at certain location was too limiting, and it made it feel too much like a rune crafting. So they changed based on that feedback. Underused armors will go rebalancing. There's new armors with particular niches being introduced. There's a breakdown of how to train the skill and what to gain from it. Farming and hunter skills will interact and tie in with warding and get expansions. There's more about dissolving and item syncing later in this blog. Information about how imbues will work, and it is possible to train the warding skill everywhere. And then there's, I'm not going to go through all of these, but they have an A to Z index of all the different terms that are covered in the blog, in addition to some other terms that they've made up. So to train warding, you gather resources, so there's ward stones and channeling lamps, which are used to actually make the wards. You make a catalytic, there's an elemental ward stone, which is a vis, they'll cover that just after this, and a steatite, which is a chalk-like mineral, so how you actually draw the ward. You draw that on the ground, and a catalytic ward stone is catalytic vis and abraxas to draw battle wards on the ground, and abraxas can be obtained from monsters and bought at rune shops. So there's some different things about how to actually make the wards. The materials are vis and fabric. So Vis is runic energy, so that is what you get when you dissolve an item. You get the Vis out of it. And then the fabric, obviously, there's Zerican fabric, and then there'll be other fabrics you can make from silkworms, and presumably using silk on a loom or something like that, and then barks as well. So you get your materials, then you locate a ward, so the ward stones throughout the world you could probably use for free, or wherever you want you could make your own ward stone using the materials above to train the skill. And then the third, with the ward they mention in here that it's kind of act like a fire sort of, so one player could put a ward down and then other players will be able to use it, and they mention that here. And then you channel equipment, so you can dissolve items on the ward. You get a chance at the raw material, and you will always get Vis from that item. So that's the dissolving method of training. So they have plans to rebalance some existing content, and I really like these ideas. They have some for free-to-play as well as pay-to-play. In free-to-play, the wizards' bottoms aren't actually like magical items, so those will be changed to have a slight magical bonus, also with the trimmed and gold variants. Shade armor isn't that great. You get it from shades from the Stronghold of Security. The drop table for shades are pretty bad, and you don't get that much experience, so shade armor will be buffed to have a better magical bonus. For pay to play, Split Bark will get a buff to it. It's not the best magical armor as it is, with the higher requirements, so it's going to get buffed. Skeletal armor will also receive a kind of large buff, and they give the idea that skeletal will have kind of a niche impact where you get a damage boost against aquatic enemies like Dagonoths and water fiends. Lunar armor, they have a large proposal too, where the current existing lunar armor will be renamed ceremonial armor, since it is used as a ceremony in that quest. And you'll be able to upgrade that into lunar armor. It'll have a very large buff to its stats. You can ward ceremonial armor to turn it into lunar armor. Lunar diplomacy will let you wear that armor, and then you could ward lunar armor from base resources instead of smithing or crafting it. And then the imbued rings and nightmare zones, so that's warrior's ring, seers, archers, etc. Those will be moved into warding, and that's also covered later. So those are buffs to current magical armors. There will be new rewards in free-to-play. These elemental wizards that are below Falador, those armors will be added to the game. So the elemental robes are degradable battle mage robes coming in all the elemental varieties, and they'll have a mask which will be a drop from elemental bosses like Obor and Bryophyta, which are free-to-play bosses. And then in pay-to-play, there's new armors and robes. There's an Arceus set, which will have 100% Arceus favor to use. It's a higher level of shade robes. Blood Bark, which is an improved split bark armor, and it'll have a chance of soaking melee damage by 50%, and the closer you are to your opponent, the more damage it will deal. Soul Bark armor, it's an improved version of Blood Bark armor, and has an increased magical damage that scales with how close you are to your opponent. Cosmos armor, which is a degradable lunar armor, and has further damage to aquatic enemies. Dagon High robes, which are degradable and have improved damage against undead like skeletons, ghosts, and zombies. Kin Hunter armor, which is degradable armor with improved damage against dragon enemies like the Dragon Hunter crossbow and lance. And Venomous armor, which are degradable robes, which should have improved damage against poison enemies like lizardmen, spiders, snakes. I'm not going to go into all the actual nitty-gritty bonuses. You can do that by yourself if you'd like. There's several new weapons proposed: Mystic Cocktails, Demon Bane Claws, and Skull Scepters. So the Mystic Cocktails, if you don't recognize this item, this is from Legends Quest, and you use these to damage a demon. So that's a ranged alternative to Chinchampas made with warding, which would have bonuses against demons and actually require you to finish Legends quests. They'd have different herbal varieties. This Demon Bane Claws, there are 4 types made by channeling items with Catalytic Vis and have increased damage and auto-cast specific spells against demons based on whatever claw you're wielding. And the Skull Scepter, which you get from Barbarian Village, kind of pointless item right now. It'll be able to auto-cast Crumble Undead and have a magic bonus against undead and improve magical attack when compared to the standard scepter. And there'll be new imbues, so the channeled combat rings kind of already all exist, and then the channeled skilling rings I like the idea of, where they'll aid you in replenishing a resource when they diminish, like a ring of wood will regenerate a tree as soon as it falls down, ring of earth, wood, amber, and iron. I'm not sure what amber would be, but like iron, if you mine an iron rock, it'll automatically replenish. And here's, I think, where it's especially maybe controversial, is the other content that they're considering bringing in, battle wards. So this is some of the idea that they thought are kind of buffs or area effects that you could put with the ward. One would be an area buff, so you put down a certain ward and it does something that area, like pulling enemies into it, aggroing nearby mobs, having a chance to heal when casting magic, etc. Conjuring wards, so at that ward you'd use an item at the ward and it would conjure some kind of demon like an imp or zombie, etc. Conjuring would allow you to get a small amount of prayer experience. And then the other skills that would tie into warding, there's farming. So there'd be 2 new types of farm patches. The flax patch, and you'd have different kinds of flaxes that you can farm, and the magnanary, where you can harvest silk from silkworms and grow silkworms, and then you would feed the worms berries to help them live longer to get more silk. And then the hunter skill would tie in by having different kinds of silk moths fly around, and if you hold a channeling lamp, then the moths would be attracted to you and follow you around. And then in a similar fashion to how implings work, certain moths might show up only under certain situations. Under the skill guide, they have a mock-up of what it might look like in the game. There's a section for robes, all the robes you can wear, so you can see the Arceus robes are added in here. And the items that you'd get from dissolving them, like Air Vis, Earth Vis, etc. Perhaps that's maybe the level you get to use that Vis at. There's a different section for battle robes. You can see the new items added in, like Blood Bark, Soul Bark, Venomous robes, etc. The different kinds of new weapons, which are called Banes, under their own tab, and then all the imbues move to a new section. So the existing rings, like all the combat rings, you add in the Lunar Ring, Lunar Amulet, and all these other rings. They have a gallery of some images. So these are the different wards, like the look when you place them on the ground. Ward stones, this looks like it's above Falador. I don't know, Karamja perhaps. Mortania. This looks like it's the Chaos Rune by Draenor Manor, maybe. This is it's not a high resolution image, but this is the Magnanary, so what you actually grow the silkworms in. The flax farming patch. And this is the Kin Hunter armor. This is the Dagon High armor, or the Dagon High robes. Blood Bark, Soul Bark armors. Those are kind of cool. And like I said earlier, you know, they want your feedback. They want us to help shape the skill. It's not finished. You know, whatever's in this blog, it's not set in stone. It's not that they're absolutely going to implement it into the game. So you can contact them, obviously Twitter, Discord, Reddit, email them, give your feedback, and you can always just vote no in the polls if you still really don't like the skill. So overall, I think it's pretty good. It seems well developed and hashed out. I'm looking forward to it if it gets passed. I like the idea of the skill, or to at least see where they're going to go with it. But what do you think? I'd love to hear your feedback. Leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.